Like when we stop physically growing, a lot of times that's when we stop mentally and emotionally growing, because enough things have happened to us so we can blame somebody else for a lack of growth because the way things were and the way we were raised, which, listen, hard stuff. A lot of things happen to people that were incredibly difficult. However, that's the way they happened. That's the way they happen. I can say that as a person who had to deal with a lot of crap that happened to me that I didn't deserve, but it happened. And I look at that and I say, okay, well, there's two people. If there was two of the same people who grew up in the same circumstances, right? One would use it as a reason that they can't do it. Another one would use it as a reason they must do it. I'm going to be the must person, not the can't. Hello and welcome. This is Brian Delaney with Unlock Potential, where we get together with top experts in their field who have simple, profound advice to help you and I live better lives, to be able to be more fit to serve the people around us and answer that question, the question that nags within all of us: how good can I be and how great can I make it for people around me? I think when people ask, like, where do these negative thought processes come from? Where do these things come from? A lot of times they want to blame somebody else. Like there's some sort of evil villain behind the scenes. It's like, oh, it's the people who run public schools. It's like, have you ever met like a passionate school teacher? I promise they're not part of this wild conspiracy to create employees that are going to be like serving the machine for the rest of their life. It's like, they just want to teach. They love kids. Like, so here's what I think it is. When I call up my mom and I tell her about a new opportunity that I'm going to take, she wants me to be safe more than she wants me to be successful, because she cares deeply for me. People want you to be safe more than they want you to be successful. They don't know what's on the other side. What they know is that right now you're safe and you're alive, and they'd love to keep you that way, right? But sometimes in holding on to things, we keep them as they are, which is not an alive state. That's death, right? But we don't realize that we're holding on to people so tight, like in that in the movie Tommy Boy, where he's like, I love him and I hold him, and like he breaks them in the process. Like that's what people do on accident to other people because they're worried about their safety and they deeply care for others. And I think there's more nefarious things going on, but I choose to look at assign positive intent and say, hey, look, that was the setup. That wasn't the completion of your education, right? We're taught these things that are going to keep us safe, but then we stop learning, right? Most people never read a book. The average person watches 4 hours of TV and reads 0 books per year. Like 4 hours of TV per day and read 0 books per year. You know what reading no books is just like? Reading no books is just like not knowing how to read. Like being illiterate and not reading, you can't tell me the difference. Like our education doesn't stop when it's in a structured environment. It's meant to be like, it's like, just like we don't stop eating when our parents stop feeding us, right? We're meant to take it on our own to the next level, but somehow we abdicate personal responsibility to other people and say, oh, well, you're going to provide for us. You're going to provide for us. You're going to provide, whether it's a government, whether it's a job, we assign that to bosses like, oh, you're going to provide for us. Well, guess what? 2020 happened. COVID happened. You had the secure job with the promise of forever employment, but then you found out that just like you were living paycheck to paycheck, so was your boss. So was your boss. And they had to close down their business because they weren't being good stewards of their money. Just like you may not have been either, but they guaranteed you a job. You had a guarantee, right? You had a guarantee that lasted as long as the circumstances. Understands that guarantees they're only as good as the people giving them. And so a lot of times what happens is we get stability up to a certain age, but then we're supposed to become stable. We get consistency up to a certain age, just like we were fed up to a certain age, but then we have to learn how to be consistent, right? We get growth up to a certain level. Like we get growth up to a certain level and then we start to grow, right? We start to have to worry about growth, all these things that we never had to, right? But we stop growing. Like when we stop physically growing, a lot of times that's when we stop mentally and emotionally growing, because enough things have happened to us so we can blame somebody else for a lack of growth because of the way things were and the way we were raised, which, listen, hard stuff. A lot of things happen to people that were incredibly difficult. However, that's the way they happened. That's the way they happen. I can say that as a person who had to deal with a lot of crap that happened to me that I didn't deserve, but it happened. And I look at that and I say, okay, well, there's two people. If there was two of the same people who grew up in the same circumstances, right? One would use it as a reason that they can't do it. Another one would use it as a reason they must do it. I'm going to be the must person, not the can't, right? And so that's what I see is like, I don't see any nefarious conspiracy that's trying to push people into mediocrity and servitude. I see that as a function of the lower part of ourself that is willing to settle and die before we're really dead. That's willing to look for comfort and convenience. Like people have extremely comfortable couches in their house. They have extremely large TV sets in their house. They have all of these comforts and convenience to make it more comfortable in their life. Do they have things that challenge them in there, right? Do they have things that like comfort and convenience? I love it. I love having a nice car. I love having a nice house. We went to Pottery Barn a few years ago and got this couch, and I sat down on the couch, and like 9 out of 10 couches, my feet literally didn't touch the floor. And I'm not a small individual, but I was like, this is crazy. This isn't a couch, it's a bed, right? And that's how life becomes over time. Like we settle into this space of comfort and convenience, and then we lay down into it. And before we know it, this place where we used to stand has become a place where we sit, has become a place where we lay down, has become a place where we settle, has become a place where we die. And we just atrophy, right? And it's not our job to work against the laws of nature. We're all going to die, but it is our job to make sure that if you were born for a reason. If you woke up for a reason, to make the biggest impact between the start date and the beginning date, the expiration date, because we don't know when that's going to be. But we also don't want to, if we blame somebody else, we don't want to be blamed for someone else, right? You can be the reason, we can be the reason, I can be the reason that people start telling a different story about my last name, about your last name. We can all do that. We can all rewrite that legacy, as long as we don't choose to accept that the story that has been written is the only one that gets to be written, right? And I think other people, they just like give other people the pen all the time. They're just like looking to hand away the pen and abdicate authority. And I think that churches have done that over time. Churches abdicate authority. It's because they're filled with people. People naturally want to give away their authority because you have to be responsible in order to take authority. And we look at those people as heroes, but that's like, it's really common for people to be uncommon. Like you look at mothers who lift up cars. It's like, that's all, that stuff is in the news. How about that? How about the father who woke up and went to work? How about the mother who stayed home with their daughter and dealt with that? Like if you've ever stayed home with a child for a full day and you don't respect full-time mothers or full-time fathers, you're a crazy person. I would stay home with my son for a couple of days and I'm like, I can't do it. I got to go back and I got to go put a roof on. I got to go lay concrete. It's so much easier, right? That stuff's courageous, but nobody's filming that, right? Nobody's filming that. And that's, I think that's the opportunity we have, is really to come alive, to really be inspired, really to get our breath back and to stop waiting for people to pump air into our lungs in order for us to live. Thank you all for joining our conversations. We're developing this platform for simple, profound tools and techniques that can help you get the best out of your life and, more importantly, unlock potential. You can find me across all social platforms at The Brian Delaney, and online, come visit us at thebriandelaney.com.